Good afternoon, Mr. Ruben Casillas. Good afternoon. My name is Rene Zambrano, and today is July 13th, 2000. We're interviewing Mr. Ruben Casillas and I want to introduce myself. Nice to meet you, Mr. Ruben Casillas, for the U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project. We're sitting here at Mr. Casillas' house in Chula Vista, California. In Chula Vista, California. Um, Before we begin the project, we would like to begin this interview by letting you know that we sincerely appreciate that you have volunteered your time to share your valuable experience of World War II. We would also like to explain the purpose of this interview for the record by reading the interview release form. The purpose of the U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project is twofold. One, to salvage the stories of U.S. Latinos and Latinas of the World War II generation, and to develop a structured audio, video, and photographic archive that will be accessible to scholars, journalists, and other interested in learning more about what life was for U.S. Latinos and Latinas before, during, and after World War II. The archives will be housed at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection and at the University Center for American History at the University of Texas. So we would like to begin by having you sign this release form of this interview, and your name of the interviewee will be here printed, and then you're signing right here and dated, sir.
Interviewee here.
Signature, yeah. Okay, today's July 13th. Okay. Okay. Okay, sir. So we can go ahead and begin this interview now. Great. So we'll begin with the pre-war questions, and we'll try to go in a chronological order as we develop this, or we try to put together your experiences. First, so the first question is: did your family immigrate to the U.S. or have they been here for a long time?
Well, they immigrated into the United States back in it was 1917, I believe.
1917.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Was it your dad that came to the United States?
No, my dad and my mother.
Oh.
Yes.
Did your family have to struggle economically when they first came?
To my recollection, by the time I was going to grade school, my dad had a very stable and good job compared to the average job in the area. So economically, I think that we were a little better off than the average bear, you might say. Because
what did your dad do to provide for the family?
My dad worked for a chemical company. This chemical company developed the ethyl that was used in the gasoline production of gasoline, which was has and always has been in great demand. Consequently, he never missed a day's work. During the Depression years, his job was very stable. So I think that we, in that respect, had it pretty good. Even though we were a big family, my dad provided pretty well for us.
Mm-hmm. What were some of your memories of your childhood growing up in Chula Vista?
Well, the memories that I have of growing up in Chula Vista, we had a pretty active life. We participated in Little League softball clubs in the area. And we did that up until the time that I was going to high school. We always had that type of activity in the area. I feel similar to what they have now, only in this day and age, they start out by Little League and they work up to the, Middle League and on up to other activities, But
Was your community predominantly Mexican or Americans of Mexican
I would not say it was predominantly, but there was a mixture, a heavy mixture of Japanese in the community, because Chula Vista at that period, during that period, was a farming community, and most of the farmers were Japanese. There was just a speckle or two of Mexican farmers. So I think that it was, I would say it was more or less half and half.
Mm-hmm. So it was Japanese and Mexicans.
Yes.
Mexicans. Your generation lived through the Great Depression. Can you tell us how your family dealt with the economic despairs of this period? You started touching on that a little bit. How will you describe your whole community as a whole, in compared to your family, for example?
During the Depression years, for a lot of the families, it was very difficult. A lot of the Mexican families in the area had to go on relief, what they call relief at that time, which in this day and age is called welfare. Mm-hmm. And that's how bad the situation was at that time. There were very, very few jobs that were stable at that time.
Did you have any other family that lived around this area in Chula Vista during that period?
You know, family related to my family?
Cousins, uncles?
Oh, yes. I remember my dad's mother living in the community of Chula Vista. My mother's parents came after and also lived in the area.
How did your family and the barrio or your immediate community react to the Repatriation Act of the 1930s?
Well, you know, during that time that they had repatriation, there were very few people that I can remember that left. Very few. I doubt that there was a half a dozen families that left that took advantage of that service at that time.
So how was the Repatriation Act, how was it presented by the government to the community?
I really don't remember that. Yeah. It didn't affect us, so we never got into that.
Okay, a little bit about your school years. Where did you go to school, Mr. Casillas?
I went to school, to the elementary school was the Otay Elementary School. And went there through the 6th grade. And from there, I went on to the Chula Vista Junior High School. And from there, I went on to Sweetwater High School, which was the only high school we had in the area at that time.
How did that students get to, what was the transportation means?
Bus service. We had bus service for all of the South Bay community had bus service to Sweetwater High School.
School bus?
Yes.
Provided by the district?
By the district.
What was school like then? Like school environment, for example?
Well, the school environment was good. And there was a little discrimination going on. I mean, it was very subtle, but we learned as we got older that what was happening during that period, we didn't realize it was discrimination until later years. We begin to see that things hadn't been the way they should have been for the general population.
Were people of Mexican descent allowed to speak Spanish in schools? For example, during your high school years?
You know, we never had a problem. I don't remember anybody complaining about that.
And was there a law that prohibited Mexicans from speaking Spanish during this period? For example, and only English law, per se?
No, I don't remember that happening.
How many years were you in school, sir? Total? Did you graduate from high school?
No, let me tell you, I left high school in the 11th grade because of peer pressure. You know, when I was in high school, uh, the people that I was in school with were better equipped financially, and we felt pressured. So I left high school in the 11th grade to go to work to help my situation. My dad was ill at the time and was failing to provide, you know, enough for the family. So I left school in the 11th grade. I didn't go back to school until after I got out of the service and went.
So you finished your. You finished high school.
I went to finish high school, yeah, then continued taking college courses.
So did you have a big family, and was it hard for you to keep going to school?
Well, we was a family of 9, 7 brothers and 2 sisters.
Mm-hmm. Any of your other brothers go to war, or I'm sorry, any of your other did your other brothers graduate from high school?
Yes. All of my brothers, most of them graduated. It could have been after the war and went to college after the war.
So was the education you received during that period about the same as your brother and sisters received? The quality of education?
You mean during the high school years or after?
Maybe during the high school, and then after that.
Yeah, I think the education system was good. I don't fault the system for my shortcomings. When I went back after the service and I went back to school, I was given every opportunity that, you know, same as anybody else, and all they asked of me was my time.
Did you work while in school? While you were going to school?
Did I work after after I got
while you were going to school during your high school years?
Only during vacations did I work, and I worked every summer vacation.
As doing what?
During farm labor. That's the only thing that was around.
Was your school segregated?
No.
So it was integrated. Was it diverse with different ethnic groups attending the same school?
They did not discriminate. We didn't have in the vicinity anything but Hispanics and Japanese people. There were no colored people in the area, so I don't think there was any discrimination at that time.
So Memorial High School, junior high school, was predominantly Mexican, and was there also Japanese students?
In Memorial?
In Memorial, where you went to school?
I didn't go to Memorial High.
You went to...
I went to Sweetwater High School.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Sweetwater High School. Okay, Sweetwater High School. Was there any Japanese students attending it there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the same mixture of people that went through elementary and junior high school that went to Sweetwater High School.
Mm-hmm. Great. What was going on in the country and in your community when you were growing up? Any particular historical events and experiences, for example? Or one example actually would be the Sandy experience, the Suit riot that
I was not old enough to experience any problems from World War I. I can't think of any thing that was so outstanding that would stand out in my mind that was happening during that period. The only thing that I can remember is as we got closer to World War II, my dad was quite a philosopher, and he studied a lot, he read a lot, and he knew that the country was headed in a direction that it shouldn't have been. And he very often spoke of the Japanese and Russian activities that were going on at that time were not the thing that people wanted to see. And eventually we begin, as things develop, I can understand why he would say that.
So did your dad ever get an opportunity to get an education in Mexico, or was he self-educated?
You know, my dad and his family, most of them were pretty well educated. I don't know uh, too much about the school that they attended or where they got their education, but my dad was a very well-read man, and I hope that he passed some of that on to us because he had a memory that just wouldn't quit. You know.
What did you do during the 1940s? Right around the 1940s. Work? You care for the family, or do you recollect what you were doing?
In the 40s? Well, in the 40s, I went to work for an aircraft factory in San Diego. And the reason I went to work for the aircraft factory was because I had been working construction after I left high school. And my supervisor advised me to go to work in a defense plant to avoid getting drafted into the Army. And that's why I wound up going to work in an aircraft factory. And that's where I spent my time working until I was drafted.
So you is it safe to say that one of the reasons why you went to work there was to avoid getting drafted?
Well, you might say that that was a reason. I knew it was inevitable, but it was going to give me a little more time.
Was there this wanted to ask, can you elaborate more when you say it was inevitable to be drafted?
Well, it was inevitable because if you were in good health, they were taking from 18 years on up. I believe that the draft age was mandatory up to 26. So it was just a question of time that if they needed you, they were going to pull you in.
Was there any waivers? Were there any waivers, for example, that would help the person not be drafted? For example, if you went to college, or if you were going to college, did that stop you from being drafted?
Well, you know, when I was working in the aircraft factory, I was deferred. I was already, had already signed up in the draft. Naturally, everybody had to sign up, but because of the job that I was doing in the aircraft factory, they were getting these what they called a deferment, 6-month deferment, and they'd keep you on the job for 6 months, and then if your job was still critical, they would get you another 6-month deferment. So that's how I managed to to get a couple more years out of staying out of the Army.
Mm-hmm. How were you then when you were working at the aircraft, building aircraft?
I believe I started working there when I was 19.
19 years old.
Yeah.
19 years of age. When you were in the military, or joined the military, in what armed forces did you serve, and what branch?
You know, when I was inducted into the service, a funny thing happened. In the induction center, I was given a choice of going into a branch of service that I would like. I had a choice of going to the Marine Corps, the Army, or the Air Corps at that time. And I chose to go into the Navy because we had a naval training center here in San Diego, and I thought I would be close to home. You know, anybody of 23 years of age, just married, naturally would want to stay as close to home as possible. So I chose the Navy, and I took the exams for the Navy, and I passed the Navy. And so they took us to the center, to the depot in Los Angeles, to transfer us from the depot to Great Lakes for training. And while we were there waiting for transportation for a train, they cut off 150 of the people that were there and transferred us to the Army because they had overestimated their quota in the Navy. So that's how I wound up in the Army.
You're one of those people that got cut off.
Well, everything being in alphabetical order, they went right through to the C's right in a hurry. And so I wound up in the Army. That's how I wound up in the Army.
Wow. So you were, where were you stationed before the war? You went to LA? Is that the region? And then you stay there before the war?
No, I was living here
San Diego?
in this area. Yes, yeah, and working until the draft caught up and called me in.
Then you were stationed in.
Well, then when they took me in, I was stationed in Camp Roberts for training. That's where they sent people for training. And after training, they only gave me, I think it was 12 days leave and shipped me overseas.
Wow. How did your family react? You came back home and you told your father and mom, I'm leaving, I'm going overseas. What was the reaction of your parents?
Well, it's like any other parent. You hate to see your sons and daughters go to war. I mean, but it's something that had started as soon as the war broke out, and everybody was accepting the fact that, if you were 18 and over, you're eventually going to wind up in the service, unless there was something physically wrong with you that they would not accept you.
And where were you sent overseas?
I was sent to the Pacific area of operations.
And did you remain there for the rest of the war period?
Yes, I did.
What was it like when you were stationed?
Overseas?
Your environment, was it different back home, for example?
The environment that I had was overseas was not a healthy environment. Mm-hmm. We were in combat, and from island to island, and so it was not a healthy environment. So my experience in the military is not a pleasant experience, unlike it is today, where without the country being in war, the military is more selective and they have more options, more benefits, more inducements. Back in World War II, we didn't have that. All they wanted was warm bodies, and if you were between the ages of 18 and 26, you were going to serve unless you had a critical job that they couldn't do without you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the major battles that you fought or you were part of?
Well, actually, I was in two of the battles in the Pacific, and we were getting ready to go to Japan when the war ended. But the two were in Leyte and Mindanao in the Philippines, and a short one in the East Indies in the island of Morotai.
So you never got a chance to go to Japan?
No, we were training. We were in training to hit Japan in the northern tip of Japan. That's where our division was scheduled to go.
What year was this, more or less, when you were training, getting ready to go to Japan?
Just prior to 1945.
Prior to 1945.
Yeah, just before the war ended. In fact, we were in training when they dropped the atomic bombs.
How did your camp react to the U.S. dropping the atomic bombs?
Well, needless to say, everybody was hilarious that the fighting was going to stop and that operations were going to cease. Nobody wants to be looking forward to going on another operation knowing the law of averages eventually is going to get to you. But everybody was happy to hear that perhaps that was going to be the last bomb that was going to be dropped.
And at that point, Germany had surrendered already. Is that correct?
Germany had already surrendered at that time.
Did you feel it was necessary for the U.S. to drop the atomic bomb?
I feel that it was because if they hadn't, maybe I wouldn't be here.
Your experience in the division you were in the military, how was your relationship with other men?
Well, this is a funny situation. When you're living in that environment, military environment, regardless of how you feel about another person, you have to have a feeling of tightness together because your lives depend on each other. So to me, race, religion, or other things didn't mean anything. The fact that the next your buddy or the soldier next to you was could be your lifesaver, so you protected that. So that's the type of environment that you were living in, and you took care of it.
Would you say the relationship among, say, Mexicans and white people was, from your experiences growing up, were so much different, and that in the war, and was there no, for example, was there any any discrimination against Mexican people?
Well, you know, I was in the Southern Division, and those people were very racist. And like I say, racism was subtle because, you know, they depended on you as well as you depending on them for in that type of environment. But there was discrimination, yeah. I was once told by a first sergeant, you know, that I would never go anywhere in that division because I was a Mexican. And they were a very racist division, you know, having been composed of National Guard units from the South. You know, it was understandable. They despised the black people. And that's where I really began to get the feeling that there was racism in the world. Before that, I really hadn't witnessed that type of prejudice, discrimination, until I began to see how they treated the black people.
So you actually maybe discovered something from living in your community, then going to the South, for example. You discovered that there was indeed racism against.
Oh yes, very much so. Once I got out,
the first time you discovered that there was racism towards Mexican people.
Oh yes, very much so. I found that out the minute I went to training. Was inducted to boot camp. You know, the training center. Right, you begin to see that there was racism there. It was always the Mexicans that got the guard duty. It was always the Mexican guys that got the kitchen detail. It was always the Mexican guys that got some of the other details.
Were Mexicans conscious of the positions they were given?
Sure, just like I was.
Sort of like the dirty work kind of thing?
Yeah, just like I was. And I knew that's why they were doing it. But you had no recourse, you know.
Were black people also separated, or was everybody together in one group?
No, the blacks were during World War II were separated. They if you had any black blood in you whatsoever, they wouldn't let you in the American Army. They were completely separated.
So what was the American Army composed of? Just pure American?
No, they were composed of everything except blacks.
The Japanese were also allowed to be in the American Army? They
were in the American Army. Filipinos were in the American Army. Any other white race was in the American Army. But the blacks, they were separated. There was a black army, and they were being used as an army of occupation, as I recall.
Having grown up in a community where there's a lot of Japanese people living in Chula Vista, first of all, let me ask: did you have any friends that were of Japanese descent?
Oh yes, I had neighbors that lived close by when we were growing up.
What was their attitude about going to war? Did they support the U.S. or were they nationalist towards Japan?
They acted just like any other person would act at that time. They never showed any preferential treatment or any specialties at all. They were just like anybody else.
Were any Japanese in your community at risk of being placed in concentration camps?
Well, they were all placed in concentration. All of the community, Japanese community in Chula Vista, was taken out and put in concentration camps.
Were they given the option of joining the Allies, or was there?
The young ones had an opportunity to join the service, and they were sent to Europe. Most of them were sent to Europe. I don't recall ever seeing any Japanese in the Pacific.
How did your family and community reacted to the Japanese assault on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941?
Well, everybody was amazed. Everybody that Japan, the country that it was, as small as it was, would ever attempt to attack a country as large as the United States. It was unbelievable. You know, it took them a long time to fathom the fact that they would do something like that.
So it came as a shock to everybody?
Absolutely.
Was there any fear that maybe the Japanese will attack Chula Vista, for example?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There were some scares that Japanese submarines come as close to Santa Barbara as they would come to San Diego. They put out a lot of preventive air balloons all over the city. They put artillery all over the city. They had a lot of things in preparation that they might try to land in San Diego as well, in the Pacific coast.
So San Diego, the area of Chula Vista, Chula Vista became militarized also at that point?
They had military people scattered from one end of the state to the other on the coast.
All over California?
All over California.
So there, at some point, there was battleships, and was there a airplane base or aircraft base here in Chula Vista by any chance?
No, they didn't have a base. No, they used to do rework on military aircraft here in Chula Vista, but we did have the military base in Coronado. You know, that was there during World War II.
Did you feel that it was your responsibility to fight in the war after Japanese attacked?
Well, if I wanted to stay in this country, I guess it was.
Did it? So, but you didn't have a whole lot of choice.
Yeah, I had a choice. If I wanted to run like a lot of them did, I would have run, but I didn't feel that way.
What do you mean a lot of them run? Can you elaborate?
Well, there was a lot of draft dodgers. I mean, there was a lot of Mexican guys that left the country and took off and never come back.
Back to Mexico?
Back to Mexico, and they never came back to get away from the draft.
Did that ever run through your mind doing something?
No, not me. I didn't think that much of Mexico to want to leave here and go over there and live, you know, the way the people were living as I saw it.
Being of Mexican descent, did you feel that this was a war that Mexicans had to go fight?
I felt that this was a war that anybody that cared for survival had to go fight.
And one more question. What were your impressions of the Mexican participation in the war?
You know what? I think that the Mexican people did as good a job in the military as anybody else. It's only, it's too bad that it's taken so long for this country, the government, to realize the efforts that were put in by the Latino community in World War II.
Do you still remember when you were drafted and your division was fighting overseas in the Pacific? The name of your commanding officer, or who were you fighting under? The commanding general.
Do I remember? Repeat that question again.
Do you, or who was your commanding general when you were fighting?
Oh, my commanding general was General Martin. Yeah.
And how did the high chain of command treated Mexicans? Or Mexican Americans, rather.
You know, I didn't get a chance to observe a lot of change of command, because when I went over there, shortly after I got there, I was put into a combat unit, and we stayed a combat unit until after the war. When the war ended, at that time they were sending you home, if you had enough points, it was a point system to send you home. And I didn't have enough points to come home, so I did about 6 months of military service after the war ended. And I think part of it was because they had lost my service records, and they would not move anyone without service records at that time. So I did about 6 months after the war ended before I got to come home.
Did you ever come face to face with the enemy?
Yeah, several times.
And what went through your mind?
Survival was going through my mind. It's a natural reaction that you get because of all of the training that you received prior to, that if you are to survive, you have to be there first.
Did that encounter make you feel that this was the end of the journey of your journey here on Earth? Many of your encounters that you had.
Well, I thought about it. I didn't think it was going to be the end, but it was going to be. I wasn't going to go easy. I try to let myself not be afraid or bury my head, because that would have been suicide. So what you do is you revert to all of the training that you had prior to going over there, and it was done specifically to keep you alive. And if you followed those rules, I think that your chances of survival were a lot better.
Did any of your friends not make it back?
A lot of them.
From the community?
There was a lot of them didn't make it back.
How do you cope with many of your realities as you were fighting the war? Any mechanisms that you use specifically to help you cope with all this danger that you were living in, the uncertainty?
Well, you know, there's a million things that go through your mind, you know, when you're put into those predicaments. But I always felt that if your day was coming, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. But I didn't want to enhance it either. I didn't feel that taking a lot of chances, unnecessary chances, was a good thing to do, which I saw a lot of them do. A lot of them failed.
Did you prepare yourself mentally?
Yes, very much so.
What was your overall perception of the Mexican soldier fighting?
Well, you know what? I think that the Mexican soldier was about as good a soldier as any of them in the military. I don't remember any of them that I was with or knew of that ever broke down and cried or ever ran or ever refused an assignment. And I think that speaks highly of the Mexican soldier, because I did see this happen with a lot of the other races in the military.
You saw a lot of other people break do
Yeah.
Do you remember one in specific?
Not by name, but I did remember seeing them. Yeah, a lot of them, when they knew we were going to go to combat, a lot of them broke down. You know, for fear of the unknown, and for fear of what might happen, for fear of what had left at home, whatever the case may have been. But it did happen. It happened frequently, more so than we wanted to think. You know.
You say something very interesting, touching back home. Knowing that you were married and had a family. Did you have any kids by then?
Yes, I had one. And
crossed your mind?
Well, yeah, every day. It crossed your mind every day that you wanted to make it back. But
did that help you keep strong?
Well, sure, certainly. It sure did. It used to energize you, you know, to think that you had to make it back for them.
So the military did not provide any kind of a sort of support, like emotional support to help you escape the war, the battles you were fighting.
No, they didn't have time for that. It was moving so fast, they didn't have time for that. You you were given an assignment where your unit was called up to go forward. You went forward. I mean, you didn't have a choice.
um, you mentioned something about earlier about sensing a little bit of discrimination growing up in the school system, in particular.
Yeah, that
And maybe subconsciously not knowing that it was necessary discrimination.
yes, when you're young and inexperienced, and a lot of things were going on that you never paid much attention to at the time, and little things. But as you grow older, you begin to see how come I was not included in this, how come I was not included in that. I noticed that the teachers would never take as much time for the Mexican students as they would for the whites. Counseling was for the Mexican people was poor. At best it was poor. They would not take the time with you that they should have been taken, or the time that spent with you should be as much time as they were spending with the others, and that never happened. And we overlooked it as because we didn't know any better until we got a little bit older. We began to realize that, why were they doing that?
Were you already conscious of during that war? Were you already conscious of what you have experienced during those years?
Oh, well, certainly. I began to see right away. The minute I was inducted into the military, I began to see how they separated you and the assignments you were given.
Being that you were treated different in the school system and not seen as American, then later realizing, and then on the other hand, the armed forces were drafting Mexicans to go fight in American war. Did you feel that you had to be loyal to a country where people treated Mexicans as second-class citizens?
Well, you know what? At that time, was young and inexperienced. I didn't think that they were treating us any different than anybody else.
So it wasn't after the war.
It wasn't until after you grow a little older and you learn a lot from your experiences that you begin to see that there was such thing as a little discrimination.
Did you feel that you had to participate but that by participating in the war, it would change the anti-sentiments, the anti-Mexican sentiments that existed then?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I figured it made a world of difference. I thought that everybody was entitled to go and do the best that you could for the betterment not only of yourself, but for the betterment of the country. Having seen what could happen to the country, when they bombed Pearl Harbor, we figured, hey, it happened there. They could have very well happened here in San Diego. Could have happened in Los Angeles. Could have happened in San Francisco. They were hitting close to home. And that's when you realize that, hey, we have to do it to keep them from going any further. If we don't do it, who's going to do it?
So did you feel that the Mexican participation for the Mexican community itself, by Mexico going out there to the war and fighting, it would change the way that country treated Mexicans?
Well, I wasn't looking at it in that respect. I felt that when I was going in, that everybody had a duty as a U.S. citizen and as a resident. I didn't, they were taking them all. I didn't see where they were filtering out whites and not filtering out Mexicans to go into the military. They were taking them all. I mean, like I say, if you were between the ages of 18 and 26, it didn't make any difference what color you were going to go in, unless you had a specific job that they couldn't do without, or if you had a political pull somewhere in Washington that could keep you out. But other than that, everybody was subject to go.
Where were you when the war was over?
I was in a foxhole in Mindanao in the Philippines.
In a foxhole?
Yeah. When we got the word that the war was over.
So your division was still fighting?
Yeah. We were defending an airstrip.
How did it all end when the news came?
Well, when the news came, I mean, we was elated. I mean, you know, that we weren't going to have to go any further because we had already been told what our schedule was going to be when we were training to hit the northern part of Japan.
How do you hear that the war was over? Was it
Through our commanding officers? They get the word. They got the word from through their channels of communication.
So the war was over?
Yeah.
Did you believe it?
Yeah, I believed it. When they told us the war was over, I believed it because we all left our positions and we slept outside for a change.
What was the reactions of your fellow comrades?
Elation, jubilation, disbelief, but, you know, happy that it was happening.
Were there any emotions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You couldn't help it.
There's some powerful emotion that came.
Yeah, when you knew that you had a chance of coming home, you know, you were going to go home naturally. You know, it was a great feeling, you know, to know that perhaps you weren't going to have to face any more bullets. You know, because if we'd have gone into Japan, it would have been a massacre. And everybody knew it.
When did you get back home?
I got home in June of 1946.
Here in Chula Vista? Is that where you were?
No, we landed in San Francisco. And I went to a depot, you know, where they process you to get you out of the service, discharge you. It was a good experience because they brought us back into this separation center, they called them, and they gave you good physical examinations and made sure all your teeth were in good order, that you were in good physical condition to leave the military. And before they released you, they outfitted you with clothing. They paid you everything that they owed you. If they owed you, they owed me 3 months of back pay. Got every dime of it when I was separated.
So were you discharged right away after the war?
I was discharged as soon as I got home. Yeah.
Discharged, but you were still active for 6 months later, or?
When the war ended, it was 6 months before I got back home. And as soon as I got back into the States, I went to the separation center. They discharged me, from the military.
How did the American public react to the coming back of soldiers?
You know, I wish I could tell you that, but I wasn't here. All I can tell you is what I saw and what I've seen in films from the first military that arrived in the States. The first ones that arrived in the States naturally got all the glory. But by the time that I was released, I mean, it was old hat, you know?
How did that feel for not being one of the first ones to come back? How did that feel? And
you know what? I was so glad to get home, I didn't even think about that.
You guys have access to radio and had a chance to listen to the any comments of when people were arriving back to the States? Do you guys have a radio or anything like that?
Well, yeah, they had a signal corps set up radios all over all of the all over the units, you know, so we knew what was going on. And it would have been great to have been in the States. Would have been some of the first ones coming home, but.
So by the time you came back, your community was pretty much settled down.
Yeah. The arrival of soldiers after that was just not noticeable anymore. I remember catching the bus downtown San Diego to come to Chula Vista. You know, people would see you like just another soldier. You know.
Were you happy to just be back home?
Oh man, yeah.
Finally touched San Diego.
Yeah, it's a feeling you'll never forget. I was going under the Golden Gate Bridge on my birthday. When the ship was going under the Golden Gate Bridge, coming home.
On your birthday,
Yeah.
Sunday? Yeah, I can picture that. Must have been exciting just to be on your birthday, to be back home.
Yeah. If you live to be 100, you'll never forget something like that.
One more question. How did the war experience change you and your perception of the world?
I really don't know. All I know is that I think that because of the magnitude of the effort that was made by this country, it had to change the world. It had to change the world. To defeat the European theater of operations, to defeat them, and to defeat all of the operations in the Pacific area, I thought it was such a magnanimous operation. I don't see how this country could have, done any better. And I think it's something that will live in our minds forever, and I hope we never see anything like that again.
Yourself, maybe reflected from your pre-war, before going to the war, then actually going to the war, and then coming back from the war. Did it transform you in any way internally, for example?
Oh, it had to have an impact on you. I mean, you do an awful lot of growing up when you're put into those situations.
Did you see life differently?
Naturally, you begin to see how the other part of the world lives, and how they survive, and why they get into the wars that they get into, and all of that it's you store it in your memory, and it has to have some kind of an impact on you, and those are things that you don't forget.
How did you adjust to the peacetime world?
That was easy. It only took me about 3 days to adjust to peacetime again, to come to a home, to an area where you knew where you're going to go to sleep that night and not have to worry about, getting up in the morning.
In your opinion, were there changes in the lives of Mexican Americans in the decades following World War II? One example, the social conditions. Or did you feel that it was about the same that before people going to war?
Well, there were still a lot of things that needed to be changed, but I knew that it was going to take time. I knew that it was going to take a lot of time for things to even out, because in some of the states, of course, here in California, we didn't notice it so much as in other states that they were very, very racist. Like in Texas, how they treated the Mexican people there for many years. I guess in some areas they still do. And but we always thought that time would take care of those things. And it has to a certain extent, but it's been very slow. I think here in California, they've been more progressive in taking care of what they call the minorities here, as compared to other states.
Did you feel the need to join in any type of organizations or movement to better the community? Or did you join in any?
Well, in later years, I joined the Elks, and I belong to the Elks Club, and I never did join the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars. I don't know why. I just never did. I didn't belong to the Knights of Columbus. I've been, in there for 40 years. But some of the other organizations, I don't know. I didn't want to go in there. It always seemed to me that if you going into the VFW, which is the Veterans of Foreign Wars, it was people get together, keep rehashing their experiences, and I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to be rehashing my experience of the military. They're not very pleasant ones. I wish I could say that they were, but they weren't.
Did you face any difficulties in your work, business, or career after the war, either because you were Mexican?
No, you know what? I'm very thankful that when I got back, they guaranteed me my job for another year, and luckily that they had a lot of work. They were real good to me. I can't complain about the treatment I got when I got back and went back to work in my old employment. And they encouraged me to go back to school, which I did, and to make progress, to better myself, and for the, you know. So I'm thankful for that they didn't discriminate. They gave me every opportunity, and in fact, they motivated me to go back to school to get ahead in my place of employment.
Any of your friends from the community, for example, did they experience any racism coming back from the war?
Well, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure that some of them must have. And it depended a lot where they were working. Depending on where they were working, some areas I suppose were more prejudiced than others. But I didn't experience that much when I got back and went back to my old job.
Do you remember any racial conflicts in your community during the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s? Do you see any changes, for example? Or did they get worse?
No, you know what? I never got involved in a lot of the activities that were going on in the communities. I don't know, it's because I was too busy trying to make a living for my family, you know, and I really didn't get involved in a lot of the community activities. I'm sure there were a lot of them. I used to hear about a lot of the things that were going on in the community, and I just never participated. Like I say, I wasn't interested.
What kind of obstacles did you have to overcome after after the war?
I really don't know how to answer that. Obstacles, how to overcome obstacles. You know, the only obstacle that you have is yourself, because if you don't prepare yourself, if you don't try to take advantage of an education, which is the key to a person's success in life, if you don't take advantage of that, I think you're lost. And I was able to go to school. They were giving away what a lot of people were paying for in other countries. And I thought it was such a waste to have an opportunity to go to school where they were giving away an education and not take advantage of it. And I saw that happening here with a lot of the Latinos, that they didn't want to go to school. And when they had the GI Bill of Rights, and the government was willing to pay for your education and handing it to you on a gold platter, and it was being turned down. And I also got to see people come from other countries, and they were eating that stuff up, and because in other countries they have to pay for an education. They don't give it away like they do in this country. Of course, they don't give it away here anymore either. An education costs you a lot of money in this day and age. But coming back from World War II from the military, these were some of the bennies that they were giving the veterans with the GI Bill of Rights, that you could go to school, get an education if you wanted to better yourself. And even after the GI Bill expired on you, I mean, the colleges were not that expensive, that you couldn't go to school, night school, and do the things that you needed to do to improve yourself.
So a lot of the friends you grew up with who also went to the war, did they also take advantage of these opportunities?
Oh, yes, there was a lot of them that did, as well as a lot of them that didn't. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you got married before going to the war.
Oh, yes.
And how many children did you have total after the war?
Well, I only had the one child when I went to the service, but of course after I come back. I remarried again the second time, and I had 4 children with my second marriage. So all in all, I had 5.
In your opinion, how did the lives of your children differ from that of your own?
Well, my children had it a lot easier than I had because I made it easier for them. I motivated them. I worked to provide better for them than my father did for me. So they had it a lot easier in that respect that I was able to, and I'm thankful for that I was able to provide that for them while they were all growing up.
More opportunities.
Yes, it made it easier for them to go to school. They wore better clothes. They wore better shoes. They had better transportation than I had when I was going to school.
Did most of your sons get an opportunity to go to college?
Yeah, sure did.
One final question. What message will you give to the youth of today to help them in a positive way? And if a youth was, for the youth that would watch this video, what kind of message will you give them?
Well, I would say to them that, an education is the most important thing in life in this day and age. Everything is so competitive that you've got to prepare yourself if you're going to compete in the job market, no matter what endeavor you might take up. It's so competitive that if you don't take advantage of an education, you're not going to be faring very well. So my advice to the youth today is get all of the training and specialized training, education you could possibly get before you go out into the job market. So that way you're going to have a better chance of getting a better job, of making a better living for yourself and your family.
Great. It's very powerful. Thanks a lot again for allowing us to interview you.
Very happy to.
Thank you.